Hello and welcome to the first video in Chapter 6. In this video I'm going to introduce to you the script from Chapter 6. It's called Shape Builder. And this script is used to create for creating deformations on your creatures that's a quasi pose space deformation type effect. And by the end of this video here you'll see exactly how to use it. So let's start right from scratch. We'll create a cylinder and let's just pretend that this is a creature's arm. So I'm going to scale this up a little bit, and we'll smooth bind this, and then we'll use the Shape Builder script to create a muscle bulge. So let's give it some resolution. I'll increase the subdivisions there, and this looks like it could act as our arm. Alright, so this will be our arm mesh, and let's just delete the history on that. Okay, so let's drop into the front viewport now and rig it up with some joints. So I'm just going to create a really rudimentary rig here with a shoulder, an elbow, and a wrist. Okay, so let's call this the shoulder, elbow, and wrist. Okay. So let's, with the hierarchy selected there, let's shift select the mesh and we'll bind it. So we'll go under skin to bind skin, smooth bind. And I'm going to reset the settings there and just hit apply. And let's take a look at the sort of results that we get from this. Okay, so if this were a character's arm now, this would be a problem pose right here because we're losing deformation. It looks like the skin on the inside of the elbow is pushing right through, and we need to pull this all out and also create a little bit of a bulge here for a bicep. Now, the way you could do this traditionally, you'd have to use influence objects and set those up to the rotation value of the joint here, so that when the elbow joint is rotated at about 90 degrees, then these influence objects which you put into the skin cluster would be translated outwards a little bit to maintain some of this volume in here. But that can be really troublesome because at no point in time during the setup phase when you're using influence objects do you have absolute control over the position of every vertex. So a much better solution would be a way of pulling these points and modeling the pose or the position of all these vertices in this pose, so that you can then fix it and determine exactly how you want the every vertex in this region right here to look. And using pose space deformation, that's exactly what you're able to do. So let's get started here. I'm going to open up the script by typing in cgtk shape builder. You can copy cgtkshapebuilder.mel from the DVD and place it in your scripts directory, and you'll be able to call it using this command. And it brings up this little interface here. And it's from this interface that we'll be able to both create the corrective shapes and then set them up to the rotation of some of our driver joints. So before you can actually start using Shape Builder to add some deformation effects to your creatures, you need to set it up and tell it what creature mesh you're using. So in this case we're using this arm mesh object, and you also need to have a blend shape node on the object so that you can so that the script has somewhere to place all of the corrective shapes that you build. So let's create a blend shape node on this mesh by duplicating it, and I'm just going to unlock these on the duplicate and move it over off to the side. So you can see here all I've done here is I've created a duplicate mesh, and I'm going to select it, shift select the base mesh, and create a blend shape. Okay, so I've created a blend shape node there, and now we can delete this duplicate. And if we look in the channel box, you can see there stretch shapes is the name of the blend shape node, and it is above the skin cluster. Whenever you add a blend shape node after smooth binding a mesh, you always have to adjust the deformation order to get it to work correctly. So let's do that now. Let's right click on the mesh and choose inputs, all inputs, and just middle mouse drag that blend shape node below the skin cluster, and now the blend shape should behave properly. So let's load this up now into the Shape Builder script. So with the base mesh selected, go under the edit menu and hit load base mesh. Sorry, we just have to select that. Okay, load base mesh, and it'll say arm mesh was loaded as the base mesh, and it'll also put the name of the base mesh in the bottom part of the script here. And we also need to load the blend shape. So let's grab the base mesh, and then if we look in the channel box now, we can see this stretch shapes tab. That's the blend shape node, and we need to select that. So just select it in the channel box and go under edit menu to load active blend shape, and it'll load the name of the blend shape node, which in this case is called stretch shapes. So we have our base mesh and our blend shape node loaded, and now we're ready to actually start using this thing. So go under the create tab, and you'll see under step 1 here we have to pose the joint, then we need to select the base mesh, shift select the joint, and hit sculpt changes on duplicate. So let's pose the joint, that elbow, into that problem pose that we were talking about earlier. So right about there looks good. So we pose the joint. Now let's select the mesh and shift select that joint that we posed. So we'll shift select the elbow joint and hit sculpt changes on duplicate. And what the script will do is it'll duplicate this mesh, move it off to the side, and then we can sculpt our changes on this duplicate. So let's just move in here and get ready to sculpt. So you can use whatever tools you want. That's the whole advantage of post-space deformation, is that you get absolute control over the mesh and how it performs. So let's I'm going to create a soft mod tool and put it right in the middle there, and let's move this up. Okay, and I'm going to adjust the fall off there. So I'm going to move the flesh up here, and what I'm doing here is just getting rid of that loss of volume. And I'll do the same thing to the other side. Pull this upwards a little bit. Oh. Okay, so that looks alright. Okay, I'm going to pause it now and just finish off sculpting this corrective shape. Okay, so I finished sculpting the shape now, and I've got it sort of with a little bit of a bicep bulge here, and I've got the flesh on the inside pulled up to preserve that volume and bulging outwards a little bit as though it were colliding with one another. And I just used a combination of the soft modification tool, and I used some sculpt polygons tool and some manual point pushing. And of course I would spend a lot more time on this for a real arm, but for demonstration purposes you can see there how what the corrective shape is all about. So now let's bring back the shape builder window and go on to step 2. So once sculpting is finished, you select your duplicate and hit generate blend shape, and we can just check this delete corrective shape box here because we don't need it. So let's hit generate blend shape, and it'll bring up B-Spirit's corrective shape, and it'll go through and do all the necessary calculations. And now if we go under the setup shapes tab, we can hit the refresh blend shape list, and we'll have our new blend shape there, which I didn't really name very good, but it's ARM Mesh 1 blend shape 11. So now we can set this up. So if I click on the blend shape in the blend shape list there, you'll see it being loaded into the driven shape section of the script, and we need to load a driver joint. So let's select that elbow joint, okay, and load that as a driver joint, and then we'll determine what axis we want to drive this on. And this looks like the Z axis. So let's choose Z axis as the joint axis, and now we'll just set some keys. So I'm going to use this the slider here in the window. We'll set a key right here with the shape at 0. Okay, so that's the shape interpolation here, and we'll hit set key, and then we can bring it up to about here, and maybe have the shape come in a little bit at this point. Okay, so we'll set another key, and then right up to about this pose right here, we want the shape to be at 100%. So we'll set another key there. So now if we rotate this elbow, we should get a nice effect where it looks like the bicep is bulging out. Okay, can you see that? And the volume is being preserved in the inside of the elbow region there too. So that's the effect that you get with post-space deformation. Now remember, this script isn't true post-space deformation because it's just using blend shapes. But this is actually an advantage in some cases, because you can then use this. You can now use this script on any character that you want to export to a game engine that supports blend shapes, because we're not using any custom deformers or anything like that. This is just a regular blend shape that's been set up with set-driven keys. So the connections, there's nothing really fancy going on here. The cool part is that you can use this in a game. Now, a discussion on post-space deformation wouldn't be finished unless I mentioned the hard work of an awesome technical director by the name of Michael B. Comet. He's created a plugin that does this very same thing here. It's called Pose Deformer for Maya. It has a couple of advantages because it allows you to define your pose a little bit more accurately. And with the script here, you can only set up the shapes on one axis, whereas with Michael Comet's Pose Deformer plugin, you can set up the shape to only blend in at a very specific pose. For instance, maybe when the shoulder's rotated upwards, backwards and twisted slightly like this, you can have a shape blend in only in that case. So it certainly has some advantages, but the disadvantage of Comet's plugin is that you can't use those deformations then in a game engine, because it uses a custom deformer that sits right below the skin cluster in the channel box. It's called the pose deformer, and this deformer is not currently supported really in any video game engines, but whereas blend shapes are. So you can use this script for your blend shape for characters that you may need to export to a game engine, or you can also use it for film quality and film and television characters as well. It really will it'll do the trick. It's just that you may have to use some custom expressions in order to define more complex poses. For hinge joints like the elbow and whatnot, this will work perfectly fine. There's no reason to use anything more advanced. But in the case of a shoulder, whenever you set up set-driven keys on joints with multiple axes, so like remember, an elbow only rotates in one axis, in this case the z-axis, whereas the shoulder here can rotate up and down. It can rotate back and forth in the y-axis, and it can also actually twist a little bit because it's a ball and socket joint. So setting up a blend shape to blend in on a pose that involves 3 different axes is a little bit tricky, and it won't really work very well if you use set-driven keys. And like I said, in that case, it's best to use the pose reader that comes with Michael Comet's plugin. So I hope you understand now the advantage of using a script like Shape Builder to generate corrective blend shapes, and you can see the advantage of this certainly over influence objects, which can take a really long time to create. They're tedious. They don't give you full control over exactly how you want the shape to look, and they also slow things down considerably. Whereas this is extremely fast because all we're working with here is a regular blend shape. So with that, I think I'll leave you alone. Hopefully you can find some awesome uses to create some really good looking deformations on your creatures. And really, I'd love to see this technique used in a next generation video game where we're gonna see some awesome new creatures that have muscle to muscle collisions and bulging, flexing muscles all over the body. I mean, it's gonna look really cool. So this stuff is pretty exciting. I hope you enjoy using it, and good luck.